Hey people, I had some time over this morning and didn't really know what to do with it. I figured I would try to tackle this whole Raksha situation, since it's probably not past anyone that we got a new boss recently, and it's a little bit more input demanding or kind of intense in especially for prayer switching and juggling several things at once. It's a rather simultaneous fight, and I know that a lot of people were struggling with it. Now, I want to start out with the disclaimer that unlike some of the other video guides, this one won't be in-depth rotation heavy. The reason for that is because I haven't really figured out how to do this the best way just yet. I've learned to do it quite well. I've passed the specialist requirement that we recently introduced in Clan, but also that being said, I am not currently, I think, even in the top 5 in CC for doing this. And the only reason I'm doing this guide rather than anyone who's got more experience or a better timer is because I'm the one who's interested in making guides and they are not. So I'm going to segment this into 3 steps. The first one is just the very basic, very casual variant where I'm making everything as simple as it could be, trying to avoid any of the complicated steps. Then I'm going to go through a bunch of mechanical aspects, which skips can be done, how they work, show some display cases, and explain a couple of little tips and tricks, tweaks to make everything a little bit more fluid. Then I'm doing a more towards the experience tag kill, where I'm using my regular ranged loadout as the one you can see right now. The only tweak is that I won't be using the Eldritch Crossbow special attack because ECB is furiously fucking expensive right now, and most people probably do this to be able to afford it or, don't have one. And then there's the third and final kill, which is my own personal record, where I'm using everything to the extent that I'm comfortable with. I am using Eldritch Crossbow normally. I'm not doing the Essence of Finality variant. I haven't gotten around to do that yet. There are some obvious advantages to doing that, but I feel like it's not really relevant to cover in a beginner's guide or a normal guide, because anyone who's at the level where they have that kind of money, they know the advantages of doing that setup, and they don't really need my help to understand it. The difference that actually helps is obviously I have my range gear, I've got my Blight Bounce and my Eldritch Crossbow, just any kind of duals and two-handed switch, really. You could do this with just a pair of Ascensions as well, or just a Blight Bounce, or honestly, really whatever. It's more a question of how long you want to deal with the mechanics, because this boss is, albeit it was marketed as an endurance test, it kind of isn't. It's just about surviving the mechanics long enough to deal whatever damage you're comfortable pushing. You can do this in 3 minutes, you can do it in 10 minutes. It will be somewhat the same, albeit in the quicker ones you won't experience all the mechanics because you skip some of them. So I have my Hydrix per criminal bolts, I have Ruby bolts. The reason why I went with the Hydrix per criminal ones is because currently they are cheaper. There is a minor difference in mechanically how they work with the bolt effects overriding when you switch bolt types, but honestly, don't worry about it. You could just as well use a Sentry. I have Sirenic, I have my Fleeting Boots, my Nightmare Gauntlets. I have 2 Essence of Finality with me. One of them is Darkbow for random relentless dumping. I don't tend to use this one that much. I do use it in the lower tier kills because I'm expecting people with that loadout to not have the Saren Godbow EOF. I have a shield, not really relevant for this. Got Vuln Bombs, a Vitality Potion, also kind of nice if you screw something up. Got runes for Disruption, Shield, and Vengeance. My Asylum Surgeon Ring, this could just as well be a Ring of Death if you're not comfortable with this boss yet. And then I have Laceration Boots and a Noxious Scythe. And the reason for that is because you use this as a Bladed Dive switch to clear a mechanic of anima pools that spawn around the arena in 3x3 formations. The AoE effect of Bladed Dive with the Scythe is extremely convenient to deal with that. So these are the auto attack animations, if you look at them carefully. Throwing his tail up like that, that's the ranged one. That's why I'm playing ranged. And the fire breathing like thing, that was magic, signified by the gigantic purple fucking ball. And then this much more subtle animation when he crouches together slightly. This is the melee hit. So now for a live overview commentary of what's going on in the first kill. What I did for this one was I tried to make everything as simple as possible, so I eliminated like difficult special attacks. I tried to minimize the switching. I didn't use any really expensive stuff other than obviously using my Eldritch Crossbow for a two-handed switch because I don't have any other ones. And I also opted out of using any ultimates, just doing this with basics and thresholds. So this is going to be a really slow kill, but it's also a pretty good showcase of the different mechanics that are otherwise skipped and could be good to know about if you're not as DPS confident or if you're just learning this. So this is not what you're supposed to do. This is just how you could make this as easy as pretty much possible. And this is also some of the stuff that you would come to expect when you're doing your first couple of kills. As you probably noticed, after each 4 auto attacks, there's a special attack. The first one was the circular tail swipe. The second one is this bomb here. At 600k life points, Raksha is going to face, and had I passed the 600k points before that bomb happened, there would be no bomb. It would just go straight into rockfall on P2. So now for the 600k mark, he starts slamming the ground, and a bunch of rocks randomly fall down. We don't know 100% if there's like a homing functionality to these. I tend to just try to run around, not stand still at all. Sometimes you get hit, sometimes you don't, but it doesn't kill you, so it's kind of fine. For phase 2, you go another set of auto attacks, and then he goes into this. This can technically be skipped, have you done a much stronger overface. I'll get to that later. You click those black balls when they appear, and then you go back for Raksha. So this is another set of auto attacks, and then he's going to do another tailspin. That tailspin could also be a charge if you run away from him like I'm doing now. I did that to show that there are 2 variations of this. The tailspin only happens if you're in melee distance. The charge happens if you're out of melee distance. Now he's facing further onto phase 3, and it's time to start thinking about these pulls. So I put my bladed die switch on. Click the pool that's pretty much the opposite of the pile from where I'm standing to ensure that I hit all of them, and repeat the 4 bladed dives, which I will also show in more detail later on. And then just carry on DPSing Raksha. So this dog that spawned here, or his minion, whatever, shadow manifestation thing, those guys are quite pointless. They're also supremely annoying, but they are not immune to essentially anything. So you can binding shot them, you can just AoE damage them from attacking the boss, you could simply just run away from it. They attack with melee, and they have a special attack or like a rage attack sort of that hits you rapidly with melee hits. If that happens, just pray melee. There's another attack that you can skip later on. These 3 bombs. They're placed where you were standing, that's why I was running sideways that way, and they also scale with the enraged mechanic. So if you screw the pulls up and the pulls heal Raksha and increases enrage, you'll get more of those bombs. See that binding the dog gives me enough time to just carry on with the boss and ignore it. And now for something that's mostly timing sensitive and just takes a little bit of habit and a calm head. So again with the grid, the green square is where I'm standing during the auto attacks, and after 2 auto attacks I move to the red one 2 steps back. Then I move back into the green one by the time the second auto attack is happening, and then back out. And the reason for this is that if you're not standing in melee distance here when he's doing the tail swipe, he's going to drop a bomb on your head and stun you. That bomb leaves a smoke similar to that of the Ambassador and the ones on P1 and P3. And it will be just increasingly annoying having a bunch of hazardous smoke in the room that you can't run through when you're trying to run through and pick up these anima fragments. So after I broke the shield there, he dropped a bunch of little anima blobs that you run over and pick up. You don't have to actually interact with them, you just run across them and they will absorb into you. And then you click that blue button to unleash what is essentially a free ultimate in damage boost. The more of them you pick up, the bigger the boost is, but it really isn't worth spending 10 hours to just try to get all of them. This is what happens if you screw up the backstepping. At that point I did a blood tendril that was too late and I didn't click off the boss, so I was stuck in the tendril animation and got the tail swipe. My prey is turned off, I'm taking an auto attack. A second auto, and then back to normal. And then P4 just carries on doing this, basically repeating until it's dead. There can be a second shield, it just depends on how much damage you're able to deal. Most of the time that's probably not going to be a problem, even though doing this very slow method without using any ultimates or any strong attacks, I was still able to do it with just the one. Here is an example of what happens when you overface something and you skip a mechanic. This is a P1, where I'm facing Raksha past the 600k point before he does the aforementioned shadow bomb coming from the ceiling, so he goes straight into rockfall instead from the autos. Obviously for this example I'm not using the same rotation as I was in the previous one where I tried to simplify everything. There he's pushed past 600 when he goes into rocks. These can be skipped. It's probably the most DPS crucial part of the fight. I haven't been able to do it myself yet. But basically, if you push past 400k before those two shadow blobs spawn, then Raksha will go directly into phase 3 and you won't have to wait for the animation of him sitting down waiting like this. So for something that's a high tier record, that's what people are going to aim for. Now these are the bladed dives again, and this time I'm going to show them more carefully. About the bladed dives, one thing I thought was important to emphasize is how the bladed dive damage is distributed around your arrival point with the scythe. So any game is divided into geometric tiles, the ones that are shown by this green wireframe overlay across the untouched pool here. And the scythe hits in a 5x5 area around your character from where you land, so these tiles are the ones that are occupied currently by the pools, the ones that are highlighted in green. And from this direction I want to click the one that's opposite from where I'm standing, the one that I'm highlighting red here. That way my character is going to arrive in the center and he will hit all of the pulls with the scythe bladed dive AoE effects as shown in the next clip. And the reason that, I'm sure most of you are aware of this, but I'm going to say it anyway, the reason that you can bladed dive back to back to back in this fashion is because the main target, the one that you clicked when you did the dive, was killed on impact. That resets the ability. And then for a couple of random side notes, first one being that these dogs on P3, they can be binded or entangled. Second one is this happens if you don't sidestep properly when you're doing P4, you get stunned by the sweep and then you tank one auto attack before your prayer is available. And then third, and you should never have to do this, if for some reason you don't want to break the shield with damage, you can stand behind this pillar for the explosion and then just go back in. Something that I originally overlooked when I was doing this was it was pointed out to me by Full Raid and Clan, which is a pretty good idea. I was originally thinking that I was just going to do one extremely basic and then one full kill with everything. But he mentioned because the Eldritch Crossbow is so extremely expensive right now, it would be interesting to have one that disregards the Eldritch Crossbow. So for this one, I'm starting with a Death Swiftness rotation into a God Bow and then doing my first set of thresholds. I'm also focusing a lot on my Death Swiftness damage. I'm using Marge Aura rather than Reckless. Step back. Carry on dealing damage, and then hopefully pass the 600k mark before he does the flying ball attack and stuns you, which I did there. And then for a second God Bow at the very end of my DS when my rapid fire is out. That overfaces slightly into phase 2 and gives me 140k damage to deal here instead of 200. So now he's going to go into the shadow balls. Click those. and just carry on. Make sure you end this phase at reasonably high adren, because you want to be de-essing again when you get to P3. You could also, by the time the rockfall happens, slam out a couple of abilities before you start going for the pulls. So with the bladed dives again, try to click the one that's the opposite of your attack direction. And then when P3 starts, throw another Death Swiftness, kill the dog, just get rid of that. In that case, I used a greater ricochet on it. You can do whatever, really. And then just deal damage to Raksha. And the goal here should be to pass him down to 200k damage before he does the flying shadow bombs. Granted, the enrage is very low here, so it would still only be like 3 of them, but it's a stun and it's also a time delay, and you want this to be done as quick as you can. So that was phase 3 finished, and now we're going into phase 4. Since I DS'd the beginning of phase 3, there's no way I'm going to be able to do it instantly when I get in here. It's still going to be on cooldown. So here I got a weak window of just a bunch of thresholds. I'm going to try to throw a Seren Godbow in there. Then to finish this phase off after the shield is done, I'm going to run around, collect a bunch of anima energy, and then release that for a final damage push, just trying to squeeze out as much as I can. So I'm breaking the shield with a couple of abilities. Collecting some anima. Not doing the full lap, because you don't really need it. And then I'm doing a Death Swiftness rotation with the anima boost. At this point, I'm also switching to Hydrix bolts rather than Ruby, because my crits are so high already that Ruby procs don't really do anything here. So I'd rather have that increased adren so I can use more special attacks or just dump harder and deal more damage. And that was boss dead. This would be the final kill where I'm also using my Eldritch Crossbow special attack. So the reason this clip looks a little bit faded was because I forgot to reset the skybox. Got lucky there with the Relentless. Throwing in an Eldritch special attack for my Thresh Dump. And a frag shot when I'm running off, so it multiplies when he walks back to me. Another Eldritch special attack, so I can do the second Thresh Dump with the spec effect as well. And then when he passes 600 and my DS is about to run out, it's another Godbow. Then specking again. Now at this point, had my rotation been more competent, I would have had a greater chance of passing him past the 400k mark before those shadow blobs happened and going into phase 3 much quicker. That was the 400k mark, so now it's time for Rockfall. Trying to overface with the Seren Godbow attack. Then doing the bladed dives. There's 2 pulls left over there. That's an annoying oversight. I went a little bit too early on that. Revolving the boss. And then doing just basically repeated Eldritch special attacks with as much damage as I can to push past into phase 4. Binding the dog just to get rid of it. Because my Seren Godbow on phase 3 was a little bit late, so I won't be able to do it as one of the first things that I do here. That would otherwise be kind of ideal, or at least desirable. But I'm starting with 1 ECB spec, and then... yeah, I don't really know what to say about this. I'm speccing as much as I can to keep the Eldritch Crossbow functionality open, and then just reverting back to Soul Split whenever I'm not flicking the protection prayers. 1 Saren Godbow before the shield, 1 after. So that was half of P4 and the shield happened. Now I'm doing half a lap to collect some anima. Trying to save myself some time. And then back to ECB specking. Another Godbow when that becomes available. That was the kill done. And to finish everything off, what you see here are the tag requirements for our Discord server. I'm going through the casual tag, the experience tag, and the specialist tag in the order that I display these kills. So the first kill will be for the Raksha casual, which is 2 kills back to back at or under 5 minutes solo or duo. The experience requirement would be the same layout, but 4 minutes, or if it's a duo, it would be 3:45, because duos, once you get a little bit more handy with your ability rotations, you can push slightly more damage as the DPS roll. And the specialist requirement is 2 kills back to back under 3 minutes, or 250 in duo. So I hope there was at least something in here that was useful to you. I can't go through all the details of range rotations because they're incredibly dynamic, part because of the Hydrix bolt effects, and part because it just seems that at this point, even the people that are really good at this tend to do it slightly differently. So yeah, either, figure out your own way and work on it, because it's actually kind of a fun experience. It will make you a better PVMer in general when there's a lot of stuff to keep track of. Or, I don't know, yank one of the guys on the top 5 list, ask them what they're doing, try to copy that.